one thing to take a horse, an unridden horse. I've been in Utah where we've worked with horses in the Bureau of Land Management, total wild Mustangs, and all you got to do is get a bunch of cowboys together. By the way, you don't need any more inspiration after Clinton, so I'm on the downside of this morning, I think. And you'd run these horses into a wide catch pen, and eventually into a pen, and eventually into a trailer, and then to my round pen where I meet the horse for the first time who's never been touched by a human, and we ride that horse in an hour, hour and a half, something like that. And you know, you can take that horse, whether we're talking about a Brumby in Australia, whether we're talking about a Mongolian pony in Mongolia, or we're talking about a Mustang in Utah, and you can back up to the arena. We just rented Denver Coliseum for April. We rent a lot of Coliseums. We rent Oklahoma State Coliseum. And you can back that trailer right up to the Coliseum where all of the world's finest are shown. And you can turn that horse loose in a world champion facilities where the best of the best have ever been. And the question is he now a world champion? And the answer is no. You can go to Hatta Mayor. You can be on a mission field. You can give a man a title. You can give a man a raise. But you can't give him character. You can't give him confidence. You can't give him the life message. You can't give him the blood. It's about the journey. It's about the journey. You see, it's the process of training the horse that makes the difference. There's many good horses out in the fields as there are in the show rings. They've just never had the journey. They've never had the relationship on the part. So the purpose is, what's the journey all about? You know, you can go from point A to point B. And you can go from where you are to maybe where you want to be. In fact, I want you to understand that as you follow the journey from Egypt to Canaan, the promised land, the land of milk and honey, the land reserved for you, the land of life and life more abundantly, only takes 2 weeks. They took Joseph's body from Egypt, took it up to the promised land and buried it there, and yet stupid Israel got lost for 40 years. That's from following a GPS with a woman's voice. Why do men listen to a GPS? They don't listen to their wife.
They're not following the GPS.
Yeah, there you go. All right. So, you have to understand that once the destination has been secured, the rest is all about the process. So what is the process and what's the goal? You see, God wants to put every believer, every child of His in the epicenter of the world. The very smack dab center of the universe. It takes 3 minutes to fly over Israel. Israel is nothing. Israel is in the front cover or the second page of every national news publication every day of the history. It's nothing. So why does God want to put us in this epicenter? Because He wants one fruit to evidence from our life. I'm going to talk to you about that target. And then through the week I'm going to talk to you about the 5 tools you need to have in your tool bag. Or you will not make it. And then I'm going to talk to you at the end about the ultimate test, whether you have arrived or not. Sounds kind of judgmental. Sure it is. You see, if that horse doesn't make good decisions, I'm a dead cowboy. And I got tired of doing soil tests after all these years, so I try to stay on top. You see, truth is never trusted until it's tested. And it needs to be tested in our lives before it's trusted by the onlookers. And so the journey is extremely important, and while you and I don't like the testing, we don't like the confinement, we don't like the process, we all agree on the destination. We all love the outcome. We all want to be like that person. We all want to achieve that status. But you know, it's like most of Christianity, it's like most of the gold finds. The husband in 1849 who said, "Honey, I'm leaving for the West. When I strike it rich, I'll send for you." The man never struck it rich, and she never heard from her husband again. The immigrants who come to our nation hoping for a new life often are coyote to a certain sure death, or to a pilgrimage they never imagined out of the utopia of America. We have preconceived ideas in our hearts and minds about what it means to have a life and life have it more abundantly, and we're often disappointed by the process and the journey. It's more full of snotty noses and dirty diapers than it should be. Well, Sunday mornings we all look good. We all clean up well. But that Monday through Saturday is a tough journey, and yet that's when Christianity is lived. And I want to get you there. Why? Because in the long run, God said, I just have one goal, by the way. We're going to keep this simple because the block layers will go to sleep on me after 15 minutes. They're my buddies. Well, you got this. My goal is just one thing. Now, this is the Apostle Paul, who's as brilliant as any man on the face of the earth. My goal is love. From a pure heart, a clear conscience, and a sincere faith. Be amazed how fast the days travel. I wrote down on the card coming in, the immigration card, the couple beside me wrote down 6 days. And by the way, I discovered they weren't a couple because she said, the stewardess said, you only need one card per family. And she used the opportunity and said, see, that's why my name should be like yours, and I need a ring on my finger. I said, kudos, good girl. Smart call. Put that out there. Maybe some of you did not. And on that card it said 7 days. We're all here 7 days. Next Friday night we'll be here and you think, where did the week go? Lord, teach us to number our days. I was taking a vacation in Holden Beach on South Carolina, and I had his father, and this is my grandson Zachary, and his father and his half-brother with me. We were on vacation, adopted boys, and I wanted to rest. So we've been talking about Psalm 90, verse 8, where it said, Lord, teach us to number our days that we may present to you a heart of wisdom. And that his thoughts toward us outnumber the sands of the seashore. So I had them take a teaspoon of sand, and I leveled it off with a knife, dumped it on a piece of paper, and I thought, I don't want to be Rip Van Winkle, so I cut that in half. And then I cut it in quarters. And I cut it in eighths so that they could count it and I could get a nap. 87,000 times in a level teaspoon of sand, God said, I love you. I'm committed to you. On one little teaspoon, on one little back deck, on one little beach, on one little county, on one little state, on one little continent, all around the world. I'm consumed with you. We're never going to get that. I don't care how long we live and how much we read this great book, we're never going to comprehend a teaspoonful of it. But the one thing I just want from you, one thing, I want that to somehow so affect you that when your days are done, you give me the one present that I want from you. The very essence of your existence, a heart of wisdom. Because you and I are possessors of hearts of foolishness, hearts of deceit, hearts of self-preservation, hearts of knee-jerk defensiveness. And it's so deeply ingrained in us, we don't even know we're doing it. The Bible says a lot of things about a fool that aren't good. And then he says the one leveler of all of us, that he who answers himself before he hears. Interrupt your spouse, interrupt your parents to defend yourself. That's so deeply ingrained we don't even know we're doing it. Is worse than a fool. Stink. Failed that test. Probably always will. I want this one epicenter where you demonstrate love. The problem is, the world is the one defining love today. The church is on the defensive. Love is an emotion. Love is lust. Love is sex. Love is no boundaries. Hogwash. Hogwash. Love has teeth in it. And when God put Israel in the center of the world, here's the teeth that included love. Personal responsibility. You will never deal with sin. You see, the gospel and sin are all about responsibility and irresponsibility. Sin is about blaming somebody else for your condition. Sin is about denying your state of affairs. Calvary is about accepting full responsibility for the decadence of man and the need to God to reconcile that. And He's the only one who could. He's the only one who would.
Amen.
That's personal responsibility, and that's when repentance begins. Hygiene. You can love somebody stinky, but you'd much prefer to be around them washed. Hygiene and morality are how you love others. And God taught Israel, listen, when I walk through your camp, listen, you stupid idiots, take a shovel with you and crap outside and cover it. I don't want to step in it. Every place the gospel, the Judeo-Christian gospel is going around the world, hygiene in every civilization has changed. This nation has changed. I've watched this nation change. In hygiene alone. Nobody would come here for resorts. You and I saw the airport packed yesterday. 12 nations were representing the flights because the hygiene standards alone changed. Hygiene is profitable. Hygiene is about love. Education. You can be stupid and love people. But if you're going to bake an apple pie for me, I hope you're a better cook than stupid. It's not good for a person to be without knowledge. Knowledge increases power. It's like there are lots of people who love to build like this, but if they have no skills, they don't end up with the result. They mean well, they love, but you see, love has teeth in it. When we work with coaches, we work with businesses all around the world. We teach them the teeth of the gospel, and they suddenly realize, now you're talking our language. The Apostle Paul put it together when he said this, and this I pray, that your love may abound. Still more and more in real knowledge and all discernment, so that you can prove the things that are excellent, in order to be sincere and blameless at the coming of Christ, Philippians 1:9. You see, love is of the church, and excellence is of the world. That's hogwash. You love Christ with excellence in everything you do, or you don't really love Him at all. Education is part of love, and that's why the Jews have always been sought after, not because they're rich, but because they've always been believed in education. Education is the backbone of the Jewish faith. So is family. The family comes from the Bible. It comes from the origins of man. It's not defined by man. It's defined by God. He said it's not good for man to be alone. He made the woman. I would never have created hormones, and I never would have given them to a 12-year-old. What are you thinking here? Hello! It's a good thing God doesn't ask my advice. Most of my prayer life consists of bad advice that I give to God on a daily basis. Fortunately, He translates. God, anyhow, we're not going to go there. So God says that, you see, love has to do with you being able to love yourself so you can love others. And the more you build your life in the pattern of God's values, and that's what the Jewish civilization is all about, including stewardship of money. Some of you are going to dole out money like you've never doled out money or candy ever in your life this week. But you know, that's hard-earned money. It's a good investment to dole out your money like that. It's a good investment to come down here. But it's a better investment, living your everyday life within a kingdom value system rather than a temporal value system. Building your life so that you have treasures in heaven to look forward to, and you don't have a thing to lose on earth. Money and time are tough disciplines. And we as believers need to realize that's how we love ourselves and love others. Government is part of that, to reward those who do well and to punish those who do wickedly, to reinforce healthy boundaries. Boundaries are the number one issue in our culture, or the lack thereof. Our presidency was selected on the basis of a physical wall. Why? Because the world of utopia believes there's no such thing as boundaries. We are in a Christian day when we think that boundaries are evil. Let me tell you what. Everything God made, He put a fence around. A solar system, a stellar system, a sea, and a land. He put a fence around Himself. He said, I'm holy. I can't lie. I can't change. I can't sin. I have a boundary around me. Why? Because, as we say with the horse, we're going to learn this week, boundaries have a purpose, but we'll catch that later this week. And the purpose of those boundaries. Now, when they finally got down to Jesus, said, tell us, John's disciples, tell us if this is the Messiah. Tell us if this is the real guy. And on Monday, you're going to realize He answered it this way. Tell them the blind see. Tell them that the lepers are cleansed. Tuesday. Tell them that the deaf hear. Tell them that the dead are raised. Tell them that the poor the gospel preached to them. And unless you see this, Jesus hasn't been here.
Amen.
Why? Don't quote my words. Don't give them the book. Give them the fruit of the book. Give them the results of a changed life. It's one thing to talk horses all day long. I'll promise you it's another to throw a leg over a colt that's never had a leg thrown over. One more stinking time. I've been on the road for 42 years. 150 presentations for 40 plus years, friends. And every colt you ever step over will kill you. Guaranteed. And every person you ever witness to can revile you, can slander you, can reject you. There's risk in sharing the gospel. There's a whole lot more risk not sharing it, friends. Because you always wonder, what could the colt have been and what could I have been had I learned my lessons and thrown my leg over that colt? Hoorah. Hoorah. Let's ride. And so the journey begins, and it talks about this fruit, but it goes through 4 stages. Name me a figure. Name me a figure in the Bible that is prominent, and I'll prove to you the pattern of every colt and of every believer in the life of the Bible. Name me a Moses, name me an Abraham, name me a Jacob, name me an Israel, name me Joseph, and I'll show you the life of Jesus. They all started in Egypt. Why? Egypt is of the world. Egypt is elemental. Egypt is where we all live and die, and it's temporal. We're all in bondage. We are all going to die in the land of Egypt. Jesus Christ was taken to Egypt to verify and validify the journey that every believer, including the Israelites, were to take, and every Christian is to take ever since then. We all come in this world and we're going to die here, but He wants to get us out of there. How does He get you out of there? And then they go where? To the wilderness. It was not a mistake that these people went into the wilderness. You would think they made a wrong turn, went down a cul-de-sac. You wouldn't believe where I've taken my semi. Because I followed some poor advice on a ferry that won't hold one of the minivans, let alone a semi-rig. Not a good idea. So he followed them down, and he led them into a blind cul-de-sac, and he led them in the wilderness, and they said, you did what? You brought us out here to kill us. You hate our guts. You don't know our needs. You made a mistake. You picked poor leaders. You have no idea the circumstances I'm in. And I hate to be a bearer of bad news. By the way, if you don't like what I'm preaching, don't worry about it. I don't like it either. It's not pleasant. It's just true. It's just true. That's all. So he leads them down the wilderness. And then where do they go? They go to the Jordan, to Galilee. You remember what he was called? He was called a Galilean, wasn't he? The guy leading all the riffraff. The guy that gathers up the white trash. The guy from the other side of the tracks. The guy from Nazareth. And if we don't kill him, the whole world's going to fall because all the riffraff are going after him. He's a slumlord. So then he leads them finally into the promised land. Every major thing God does has 4 divisions. You see it here, don't you? Remember the tabernacle? Remember how you were outside the tabernacle that Moses made, and the tabernacle was a tent, was an image of the heaven above. Paul talks about going to the 3rd heaven, and what's he talking about? We're scratching our head. Satan himself comes into heaven. How can he do that when he's been kicked out for being evil? How does all that work? Well, you remember there's an entrance gate into the tabernacle, into the outer court. 4, 3, and then there's a gate called into the holy place, 2nd court. And then there's the entrance into the Holy of Holies that only the high priest goes into once a year. 4 divisions. Interesting enough. The heavens have 4 divisions. That's why he speaks of a 3rd heaven and those outside of heaven, where Satan is allowed to bring in. Even our jurisdictional courts. Every court in America is defined by the heavens, where the high priest sits, and then become the prosecuting defense attorney, and then become the jury, and then become the outer court, defined on a biblical pattern of judgment and of innocence, to remind us that we stand for eternal judgment. And of course we watch it in Exodus, we watch it in the temple, and we watch it in marriage. Everything in the Old Testament is a picture of a relationship of the future. We start from unknowns. We enter into a covenant. We become a physical husband-wife couple. But as life goes on, we merge to a social couple where we enjoy things where, like the other person starts answering your sentences the same way you would. It's bad news. And we become one of spirit, body, soul, and spirit. God wants that for you and I, the same way of marriage with Him, where we start with the fact that we're sinners just because we got caught doing something, we just got out of jail. Sin is the obvious thing, and we have no idea what sin is. We enter into a relationship where we start to follow Him, and we begin to call Him by name, and then we become one in fellowship, and one in identity, and one in purpose. But the real goal is to become one in spirit. So that when 1 John says, what we heard with our ears, what we saw with our eyes, what we touched with our hands, we proclaim to you, so that you may have fellowship with us. For our fellowship's with the Father. So if you've shaken my hand, you have shaken the hand of the Almighty. Those are hard-fitting shoes, aren't they? That's worse than a wet swimsuit, friends. That's who we are. That's the intimacy of Christ. That's where He's taking us. Sure, it's scary. It's the scariest thing on earth. A harlot can be with any number of men on a given night. You can even be so much on medication that when you're wearing a hospital gown and walking down Main Street, you think you're clothed. There's a lot worse nakedness, friends, than physical nakedness, isn't there? Soul, spirit nakedness, transparency. Now that is the scariest of scary on the planet Earth. To have nothing between your heart and His. Nothing between. I'm not talking good stuff, friends. I'm talking the psalmist that writes, Blessed is the man that takes your little ones and dashes their head on a rock. That's how I feel. Mrs. Joe, curse God and die. I'm sick of him. We go through some mighty difficult times on earth when we feel betrayed by the Almighty. We feel abandoned by our best Christian friends sometimes. The feelings and the depths that you and I go through, and you're going through them right now, many of you are in the most painful situation of your life. And he says, it's okay. I'm going to meet you there. I own the heights and I own the depths. I'm a macro God and I'm a micro God. And I'm there to meet you. There's one God of all, over all, in all, and through all. Go ahead, run from him. It'll cost you a lot more than you think. It's a scary battle. It's a scary decision. Hello! It's time to cowboy up. This is the time. This is the week. God brought you here to meet him. If that scares you, get on a plane today and go home. This is Mount Moriah. This is what God has been looking forward to from centuries past to centuries in the future, where he names you among other men and he brags about you before eternity. He wants to put you in the epicenter of an eternal existence, not just a temporal existence. And he wants to be not ashamed of you when he sees you, and you not ashamed of him. I don't know of a thing on earth that's more exercising and more wonderful, more awesome, and more overwhelming than any of us can comprehend. Here's the deal. When they left Egypt and they journeyed into the promise, into the wilderness, that's called salvation. And then he took them there and he separated them from other things, and that's the wilderness. And then he took them over there to study and sanctify them, and then he took them to a place of service. You ask Clinton, where's Clinton? My dear brother Clinton. If coming down here and laying block with his Uncle Terry and the gang and his dad is the same, it cost him the same then as it did becoming a missionary for MGM. And I'll tell you what, if Clinton had the truth to tell you, he'd say, if I'd known what I was getting into, I never would have come the first trip. Can I get an amen, Clinton? Amen. There you go. After all, he's going to get a Pittsburgh Steeler on us sooner or later. So, now here's the deal. You see, getting the colt into the pen is one thing. Riding him out of the pen is another thing. You're an idiot. You're just a plumb idiot if you think you're going to conquer 1,200 pounds by mere strength. You may ride that colt. Will Rogers said, there ain't a colt that can't be rode. There ain't a cowboy that can't be throwed. You see, I test the colts before I move them from one arena to another arena. One of the things, if you've never been here, you'll be intrigued by as you walk down little houses. They got these rebars sticking up the ceiling on the walls. And you that have been here know that's because they're planning, when they build the first story, to attach a second story on. I was here when we put the footer on this building. And those stupid people were dreaming about a second floor when they couldn't get a foundation in. Great, isn't it? Because, you know, you can't add on unless the footer's there, can you? You can't add up unless the footer's there. When will God exalt me? When will I feel his blessing and his favor? Shut up and put more footer on. Shut up and put more rebar in. Shut up and dig deeper. We're going up. We're going out. We're going a long time. I brought you here for that. I didn't bring you here to play patty cake. I didn't bring you here for a feeling. If you're living for a tingle and a tinsel and a taste, you're in the wrong trip. You're in the wrong trip. Got on the wrong bus. You see, You can't come out of the gate. There are many a time I ride a young horse that's been in the round pen for the first time in his life, saddled for the first time in his life, and I ride him out of that gate into nowhere land. Now, he's dumber than a hoe handle. But I never ride a horse out of that fence unless he hears my voice, unless he sees where I'm headed, and unless he's alive and moving. I won't tell you about the dead horse. You know why they said Jim never tells the same story? Because he can't remember the original story. There are all kinds of stories of how God works, and that's the flesh of what God is doing in our lives. And so God wants to take us out of Egypt, but he will not do that. He's first of all going to show you something. Then he's going to wait till you hear Moses' voice. And buddy, your feet better be moving, or you're going to suffer the consequences of those who talk the talk and don't move the feet. The gospel is about moving your feet, friends. And I'm prouder than all punch that you're here, because for some of you, this is the biggest step in your faith or non-faith. I don't care whether you're a believer. I don't care whether you're a God hater. I care diddly squat about that right now. But I'll promise you, you're all going to move this week. That way or that way. And unfortunately, my being here brings an indictment to me and us together. When we hear this truth, when we see this Savior, when we smell his presence, we're all the more privileged and all the more accountable for the truth we hear. For some, it's a curse. You will hear the truth and understand the light and perceive a life offered to you that you may turn down. And for others of you, it will be the stepping stone and the hope that you've needed in your desperate situation to step up one more time. Every man falls. Every man falls. I don't care how many times you've fallen. The danger is believing that you can't get back up. That comes from hell, friends. The righteous man falls 7 times. But he's stupid and desperate enough to get back up because there is nothing else. And the wicked man stays down. Hope is the first thing the devil will take out of your life. Hope is the first thing he'll take out of your life. On the way down here, I talked to a man who just had his hip replaced. And he was in a lot of pain before replacement, and he's still in a lot of pain. You know the difference? No hope, hope. Makes all the difference in how you handle pain, doesn't it? So the devil takes the hope out of your life first, so you will reject the pain, you reject the suffering, and you reject the Christ of the suffering. You will never know him. That's why in the Garden of Gethsemane, when he asked his disciples to stay awake, he wasn't asking them to stay awake. He was asking them to share my pain for a moment. I want to go to sleep too. In fact, I choose to sleep. There's so much about Jesus I don't want to know. You see, he called my bluff too. There was a day when I sat where you sit, and I said, I just want to know all of Jesus. I just want to be so much like Jesus. And he said, you're a big fat liar. You only want enough of me to get by. You only want enough of me to look good. You only want enough of me to be comfortable. And when I realized his heart for suffering, his heart for the sinner, his heart to endure, I said, you're absolutely right. I don't want that big a heart. I only want a little of Jesus. But may all of us want just a little more Jesus than we know right now. Dare to get a little closer. I'm on the front of the scary list. The more you know about him, the more awesome, the more wonderful, and the more frightening he becomes. He's not a tame kitty cat. But he never ends. He's going to take us through these tests. The second test out of the winter is, why is it? And you're not going to like this. You're not even going to agree with me, and I don't care. 1 Corinthians chapter 10. All those things, the manna, the water, the enemies, the wilderness, all those things happen for us. They perished in the wilderness. I'm not a Darwinian person. I'm a creationist. But I am convinced that many believers will never make it to Christian maturity. Survival of the fittest is the truth to that. God can only use you if you stay fit and available to Him. Otherwise, you too will perish in the state that you're in. Most of the people never made it out of the wilderness. Why? Very simple. When I work a young colt, I got Zach, he's 13. I got him on his first training project. We bought a 30-month-old colt that was never touched, never haltered. And I'm trying to keep Zach alive and get even with him at the same time. Trying to build a good colt, and yet trying to make that colt obey. And that colt can really break in half and bury you in the dirt. I never want that colt to buck under Zach. And I never really want Zach pitched off of him. I'm building a relationship of trust. Now Zach has I got 2 2-year-olds that I'm working alongside. Zach has a long way to go before he can put a spur on that colt. We have a lot of trust and strength and patterning to build before I can even put a spur on him. Now I got 2 younger colts that I'm riding that I spur and ride because I only put spurs on a gray horse, friends. You got to earn your right for spurs, and they're never for jabbing and punching. They're for specifics and moving from mediocrity to excellency. But I'll tell you what, when you put a spur to an unbroke horse, you know what's going to happen? You're going to be an astronaut, not a cowboy. You know why? Because his body is his body and you ain't touching it. You put a spur to a broke horse, he'll never question the spur. He'll just do what he's supposed to do with all of his heart. You put a spur to most Christians, you'll find out they never met the cross or the Jesus of the cross. Because stuff comes out of our mouth and out of our heart that is unbecoming to Him. It has nothing to do with church. It has nothing to do with society. It has to do with Him being worthy of me growing up. But I'll tell you what, you put a spur to a broke pony and he knows what it's for. He'll awe you and he'll wonder you and he'll press you and he'll draw you in because he knows what that relationship's about. When you ride that horse blindfolded and bridleless and you run him at full gallop and your voice alone says, whoa, and he slides 30 feet, I'll tell you what, there's a person in the audience that doesn't stand on an ovation because they know the relationship with the master. He puts you in an epicenter to ride you bridleless, without restraint, to ride you blindfolded so you're absolutely confident that he will never fail you. I suppose we got some growing and some knowing to do, don't we? Right, because that distrust factor just sneaks in there. Oh, it's just so knee-jerk. Well, we've been hurt before. Sure you have. Sure you have. What can I say but suck it up? There ain't other solution. Suck it up. You need to know one thing, friends. Jesus is a garbage collector. I don't know if you're like me, but when I packed a lot of stuff that are never coming home with me. And I packed early so that I could tell my grandson how to pack. And you know, I thought I'm going to straighten my drawers out too at the same time, get them nice and orderly. And all the socks that I put out to come to the DR, I put back in the drawer. Bless my pointed head. After all this time, all these trips, I left all my socks at home. Now, here's what I want to get to you. He's a garbage collector. Everything you call garbage, he'll take. But you got to call it garbage, sin. It's not a neurosis. It's not a psychosis. It's not a disorder. It's not an acceptable thing. It's not an affair. It's not me, she. It's sin. Blood only covers sin. The good news, it covers all sin. Every last bit of it. I don't care what you're in. It covers all sin. You just have to be calling it sin rather than excuse. I told you it's scary stuff. You need to leave all your dirty laundry in the DR. So that the jet doesn't fly at 5,000 feet, it jumps to 10,000 feet because it's so stinking light. Because the burdens in your back are gone. And they catch it. These people are stupid happy. Now, you see there was a gate between the outer court and the inner court. There was a gate between the outer court and the holy place. There was a gate between the holy place and the Holy of Holies. When God created the earth, what did He do? First thing He did is He separated light from darkness. He put a fence between light and darkness. He put a gate between upper waters and lower waters. He put a fence between land and water. Hello! And only I'm going to get you through. But I'm going to test you, and I'm going to build you, and I'm going to help you become the very person you long to be and cannot be. I'm going to take you to the promised land. I'm going to put you on the epicenter. I'm going to give you the joy of your heart. Hang with me on the journey. You only got to ride it for 8 seconds or 40 years, whichever comes first. We tell you what, when you're on a bronc, 8 seconds is 40 years. I'm going to leave you with one thing. You see, the number 7 frequents the God of perfection. 7 days of creation. 7 pillars of wisdom. 7 attributes of wisdom. Pure, peaceful, gentle, reasonable, full of mercy, unwavering, full of good fruits, without hypocrisy. It goes over and over. 7 conditional beatitudes in Revelation. 7 unconditional beatitudes in the book of Matthew. 7 repeats itself again. And by the way, folks, I just wanted you to know, in this land of milk and honey, this land of promise, the 1849ers, this land of the gold rush, this promised land of America. By the way, I forgot to tell you before you left, there's still 7 nations mightier and stronger than you that I left there. Say hello to them when you get there. Well, that's not how it's supposed to be, is it? If it's from God, there should be no sweat to it. If it's from God, there shouldn't be any poverty involved. If it's from God, I shouldn't be in such unknown, unpredictable circumstances. If it's God, why would I be in the middle of the Sea of Galilee and no Savior and nothing but a stormy wind? If it's God, how did I get here? Oh, it's of God. Absolutely of God. And I left those nations there for you, by the way. That I'm going to tell you ahead of time, they are stronger and mightier than you, and you're going to get licked bad. Unless you will learn one lesson. I brought you there to lead you, to deliver you, to empower you and equip you. But you better get a hold of this one lesson. And that's on Thursday night. You better not hear it. You better listen to it. You better listen to it. It's the only thing that will save you. In every circumstance, every time, all day long, until He comes again. Those tools are important. Why? Because God doesn't want you to be an unskilled workman. A workman that does not need to be ashamed doesn't carry extra tools with him. I just sent my Freightliner in to repaint, and I stripped it of all the tools and all the extra tires and all those things that need to be out of there. Because when I repack it, I'm only packing, in this case, everything for tire repair, brake repair, and everything in here for electrical repair, etc. Because I don't have a lot extra room. I don't want to carry a lot extra weight. I only pack the tools I need, but I pack every tool I need. Because when you break down between Albuquerque and whatever that is out there, where there's no other people, and there are no other towns, you're going to sit there all day and not get it unless you fix it yourself. Skillful workman who does not need to be ashamed. Hang on, we're in for a wild ride. When I finish, I want to give you an overview of the 5 tools. You see, when you're young, you don't need these things because you see 20/20. You're an eagle eye and you have good marksmanship. Stink. As we get older, we don't see as well. Unless you've learned to use the tools. Then you see people. You see things nobody else sees. You see hearts. You see needs. You see opportunities. Because you see from the inside. Some of you are in hearing aids. And you repulsed the time when you finally admitted to your spouse that maybe she did say it right and you didn't hear her well.
Amen.
I'm telling you, that's a low blow. That's a dark day when you admit that I didn't hear you well. And you don't hear as well. You wear hearing aids. But if you learn to use these tools, you hear the cry. You hear the cry of the unjust. You hear the cry of the orphan. You hear the need of the future. You hear a calling that no young person ever is privileged to hear. There's a price you pay for gray hair, folks, but if you don't get these tools down, you're just going to be old and dead. And whatever doesn't hurt doesn't work. But if you learn, you become more useful, more powerful. There was a day when your body was in poise and perfection, and every move you made was with grace and agility and dignity, and now the muscles hurt and the joints are worn out, and you're not as stalwart as you used to be. You're not even as tall as you used to be. But your stand isn't about super hyperficial issues. It's about the things that matter and only the things that matter. You stand truer, stronger, more confident than ever before, even though your body is bent. You see, when you use the tools, the 4th tool, yeah, your titles and your accolades and your position and your money and all that stuff gave you influence. But over the years, you swapped it off for love. People come and listen to you. People come to consult with you. People come to ask prayer of you because the power of influence is always greater than the power of control. And lastly, when your results about power and accomplishment in your life were about winning and trophies and X's and O's and championships and titles and money, you realize I've gained something more. It's about eternity. It's about generations. It's about the heart of the lost. It's about the things that are on God's checklist today, not mine. Let's pray. Oh God, it's kind of like we read the fine print on our journey now, and it's like, hello, I didn't know about this. I don't know if I signed up for this. Was this really in the original contract? Am I in over my head? I'm scared. I'm in deep water. I didn't come here with this intention in mind to deal with me. I came here for an experience, for an opportunity to give. Now you've taken me way out of my comfort zone. way out of my retreat mode. And you come expose me right in the middle of people in the middle of nowhere. And I suddenly realized you drew me and you know me and you brought me here to meet with me. Now, God has his intentions of meeting with every one of you. But it would be nice if you'd answer the phone this morning and say, God, I'm here. Hello. I'm here. I'm answering. Oh, dear friends, he's going to meet with you. But he'd much rather you open the door than him to have to knock it down. To fear God is no shame. It's no act of stupidity. It's the bravest, most righteous, most noble thing you can ever do as a human being. To say, God, I'm here. I'm listening. I need to meet with you. Please come in. Please come in and meet with me today, this week. However you choose to do it, I'll be there, I'll listen, I'll take notes. I'm ready to sign the check, Father. You fill in the amount. But I can't clean myself up. I can't make myself better. I can't make myself good. So no conditions offered here. I just am what I am. And I am that by the grace of God. Thank you for bringing me. Thank you for keeping me. Thank you for your promise that there's another chapter to this book in my life. In Jesus' name and through your blood.